Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EAMC podcast. This is your all-access pass to go backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live entertainment industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to some of our favorite people as we dive deep into the world of live touring shows and the venues that host them.
Our adventures today take us to Anaheim. We're talking with Megan Ebeck. She's got a great background. I'm excited to talk to her about all kinds of stuff. She's currently the marketing manager at the Honda Center. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, we talk to a lot of people in different phases of their career. And one of the things, that we do, I talk to people with a lot of experience. We talk to people with, who are brand new to the industry too, because they bring a different perspective. But when Paul and I were talking about having you on as a guest, one of the reasons we want to talk to you is because you're kind of different from a lot of our other guests. And you're still kind of on the new side, right? You still get that new car smell, but you've got a little bit of experience and been a heck of a few years here for you, but excited to hear about your adventures. Tell us, for those who don't know, Honda Center, Anaheim, what's going on there? What's happening? What's the Honda Center doing these days?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a wild ride, I guess, for everybody, especially with the pandemic, but getting back into the swing of things here in California, figuring out on what day is the mask mandate happening, when is it ending. But we just ended up having UFC at the arena and had the highest gate revenue for the state of California for UFC.
Wow.
Pretty amazing. And it was my first UFC event. So that was a pretty awesome experience, just seeing the pay-per-view and side of it and just going above and beyond on the backstage to kind of make UFC feel at home. But the other part about Honda Center is they're expanding with OC Vibe, and you can look it up on ocvibe.com and just kind of see everything that's coming to Anaheim in the next few years leading up to the 2028 Olympics.
What is OC Vibe? Is that a venue?
It's a venue that will be a smaller amphitheater attached to Honda Center, but also just kind of creating a community and just making Anaheim kind of a destination.
Like a district almost, right? Like kind of threading all these multi-use facilities together. And I mean, that definitely is something I think I've seen happening in cities, and they seem to be pretty successful, but creating more than just the, arena silo in the middle of the downtown, but how do we, add in some bars, and how do we add in some hotels and a couple other amphitheaters, use it year round. So I think that's really exciting.
And being a part of the Olympics in 2028.
That
little diddly.
Well, the Olympics, right? Just is it too early? Because I know when we do one of the big NCAA championships, or we host a big event like that, we start planning years in advance. When do you guys have to start thinking Olympics?
I am still on the new side of things, but I know the talks this would be more of a question for Kim, who was another guest on this podcast. That's more up her alley.
Gotcha. Well, it's a lot going on there. And, you mentioned the pandemic being a big factor in the past couple of years, as it has for all of us, and how things are ever evolving and changing and keeping up with the rules and everything. But it's been quite a ride for you. So I know we mentioned that, you've kind of had a big adventure, but, talk to us about these past couple of years and what they've been like for you personally.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I think I've experienced the highs and lows of all of the things that you can experience during this pandemic, from parents getting COVID to dodging COVID to losing a job to quitting a job to kind of landing back at home and doing the full migration home, and to losing a family member. So I've kind of seen the full spectrum of all of this madness.
Yeah, geez. I mean, I feel you on some of that, but fortunately I've not experienced some of the other stuff. But I know you and I connected a lot over the last year and a half, because we were, unfortunately, some of the people that did lose our job because of everything. And, that's its own unique role. There was a lot of furloughs. Fortunately, there was not as many layoffs, but some of us did get hit with that. So it definitely created a different experience. But, what did you we were talking a little before we recorded how you're big in like Peloton, but like what kind of did you pick up during that time? I know for me, since I wasn't kind of in this like, oh, we're bringing you back out of furlough, oh, we're putting you back into furlough, I think some of the people were kind of stuck on that yo-yo, whereas maybe the good thing, I guess if there's any small benefit of getting laid off is it's like, well, you're laid off, so like you don't have a job. Like you don't have to worry about it. So it kind of forces you into like, what am I going to do? Like what hobbies am I going to pick up? And I know you were doing some like little like digital drawing and stuff on your iPad. Is it like, what kind of stuff did you pick up during that downtime to sort of fill the time and explore?
Yeah, I think it was, so I was laid off in August, and I think the next month, a few of my coworkers from the Sharks and SAP Center decided to do a running contest to see how many miles we could get during the month of September. And I took that literally. And I think all of us ended up around 40 to 35 miles per that month, which is crazy because none of us were runners. I had not run a mile basically since high school, if that. So I picked up running, and it's on a really old school treadmill while using the Peloton app, but it's kind of been my sanity for the last 2 years, and something I don't know why none of us really focused on before, because we're so busy working in the entertainment industry that now kind of finding our loophole of what actually helps just do day by day. But yeah, I picked up drawing on Procreate, started drawing a few of the athletes, drew Mike Trout because I love the Angels and Mike Trout from when I interned with them back in 2014. But I'd say Peloton, running, EAMC. When I was laid off, I was like, I have all the time in the world now. So like, how can I be more involved? Let me learn how to better my skills on Photoshop and just kind of see what I can take this time to learn and have the ability to kind of pause. And it also took me back to all the things that used to make me happy when I was a kid, because I loved to draw when I was a kid, started doing that again.
Yeah.
And I was a fairly large athlete as a child, playing soccer, doing Irish dance and tennis. So just kind of going full circle to what made me happy as a kid.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you had on, which is so true, is fortunately for the conference and for this podcast, you and I did have a lot more free time. And to give credit where it's due, anyone listening, Megan is the one who does all of the cover graphics for all of our episodes. She and Camille, who we've had on, and Samantha Marker, who's also on our team. I mean, they're very much the unsung heroes doing all the heavy lifting behind Dave and I. And it's
a lot of heavy lifting.
they got in before we launched it. And it was back when it was just this crazy idea. And we're like, can we even pull this off? And honestly, we would not have been able to. But just as I think spoken about previously, how it was this opportunity with more time, it was the same with, Megan and Samantha. And they kind of jumped in and said, I've got extra time. Like, how do we do this? Like, let's play with it. Let's figure it out. And I think, we both probably found a little outlet in that, because it was this new kind of fun toy of marketing a podcast that none of us had done before. And it was just something to occupy our time. It was like an unpaid job that we kind of got to sink our teeth into and distract us from everything else.
And stay connected to the industry after being kind of let go from it, and just having a pulse on what's happening and kind of how the pandemic is shaping up what we did love and how we could get back to it one day.
Yeah.
So Megan, you talked about using this time to kind of teach yourself Photoshop, right? So I know there's folks out there listening who live and die by the graphic designer, right? But you've been doing some of that. So let's talk to that person who is not sure where to start. How do you teach yourself Photoshop?
I think you just start. One of the books I actually read over the pandemic too was Atomic Habits. And I highly recommend that book. But it says basically, if to break a habit, basically action is the first thing you need to do. So just starting. The scariest part is what you don't know. So when you just start trying to figure it out and Google how to do it, there's so much content out there on Google, on YouTube, on Skillshare, just to learn. So I think just having the courage to just open up Photoshop and just start messing around with it. And then even then, you can still like learn how to do things, but there's always another way to do it. So just because you learn it one way, that's the way there it is.
Yeah.
And it's so addictive. And it's so addictive. Once you get in there, you find that you can't stop messing around with pictures, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. You almost have to like relinquish control of knowing it all too. Like anyone who I know that knows how to use Photoshop, everyone would probably say like, oh, I only know how to use it somewhat, because it is such a beast of a program. Like you shouldn't enter it thinking, oh my gosh, there's this giant mountain of a program, I have to learn everything. You're just never going to learn everything. You just kind of, like you said, you have to jump in, and then you have to stumble, and then you have to kind of just figure out your way to do it. But there's a million ways to do the same thing, so everyone can kind of find their own comfortable path to get done what they need to do.
I think it's also evident too when you look at shows ad mats. You get some from some promoters that have about
Right.
60 layers, and then you get other ad mats from Live Nation that are perfect.
Right. That's true. I know.
It's
informs
funny
all
because
that.
Paul, you're right. You get in there and it's intimidating because there are 65 different options and 112 things to choose from. But really, and kind of like Megan was saying, once you get started, you just pick one thing and watch a YouTube video on how to fix a blemish in a photo. And next thing you know how to do that, and you pick up on one more thing. It's a very cool way to get started. Megan, when I was snooping around about you, one of the things that I thought was pretty cool that I don't know much about, and I think a lot of people listening to the podcast are marketing experts, but we get nervous when it comes to Google Ads, or when a promoter mentions search or display or ad measurement. But you are certified by Google. Talk to us about that process.
That was another thing that I did with my spare time around the fall of 2020, was just starting to dive deep into Google, knowing that digital ads are definitely the way of the future in terms of how you can track your marketing campaigns and see. Now that we want to basically start tracking results, knowing that budgets might change if you're going to get a smaller budget / just so how you can make sure you get the most bang for your buck. But definitely spent the time to do all the Google Ads certifications. They took quite a long time. And now...
Is it like an online course you're taking there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get a certification that lasts for about a year. So I now have emails saying that mine are now outdated. So I need to go back and do that. It's just through Google, and it gives you real life examples from mom and pop stores about how they should best use their campaigns. And it's interesting seeing it from it's more towards a perspective, somebody who doesn't really understand what marketing is, and just kind of teaching them the method behind the madness, while also having it be more on the advanced level to do the nitty gritty of the campaigns and kind of see how many different ways you can run your digital campaign.
Yeah, my biggest challenge with that always is like, it's a lot of times that stuff's handled nationally. And then so you get that opportunity by somebody, and they're like, hey, can you get into this? And you get in there, you teach yourself how to do it. And then it's, 8 months until you do it again. And by that time, everything's changed.
Yep.
Everything's
Mm-hmm.
changed, or you forget it, and you're like, I thought I went into every menu's different. Oh my gosh, it's now offering these 12 new sizes that I have to design for, or whatever it is.
Or videos changed, or Facebook has changed their privacy rules, and now you're not reaching.
Right.
Yeah. To be a good digital marketer, I feel like you have to live and breathe it daily or weekly at a bare minimum.
Yeah, to some degree, for sure. So then those are free certifications that you can get. And what kind of time do you think you put into that?
I would say it took me about 2 to 4 hours a week to get through some of it. They were quite extensive, just based off the way it was set up in terms of timing you for answers and the quizzes and whatnot.
All right. So for you folks listening out there who have always wanted to learn a little bit more about Google Ads, whether it's search or display or any of that kind of stuff, reach out to Megan, and she'll be happy to give you the links to get yourself started there. Hey, speaking of getting started, you are over a decade ago going to class at the University of Arizona, and College of Management. What did you think you wanted to do at that point, and what got you over into the live event industry?
It's a great question. I'm going to go back to high school for a bit. When I was in high school, I was asked by my friend to do the stats for my high school's baseball team because she didn't want to be the only girl. So I started doing it. And at the time I was 16, and my mom was like, you're not going on the away games because you're going to be with a bunch of boys, and that's just not a good environment. But I did it anyways. And I did it for 2.5 years. And Nolan Arenado happened to be on the team who's now just a casual Gold Glover, Silver Slugger, whatever you want.
You know, no big deal.
But we ended up going to the CIF championships, playing at Dodger Stadium. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to be involved in this kind of atmosphere. And I knew when I was looking for schools that I wanted to go to a school that basically was a sports school. You could argue Arizona is not the best sports school to attend, but near, like, whatever. I ended up going to Tucson. I swear they put something in the water because everybody is a giant basketball fanatic. And I got an internship with Arizona Athletics right off the bat. I think it was my second month in. One of my sorority sisters was like, once again, we're looking for another girl because we're trying to not be an office of boys. So I ended up getting an internship at Arizona Athletics and just fell in love with it. And originally at that point, I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, but I ended up going to a graphic design class and I felt like I was an 8-year-old in a class of 25-year-olds. And I was like, this might not be the career path for me. Why don't I go to marketing and do a little mixture of graphic design and marketing, but learn how to do the full picture while working with graphic designers. So kind of knew what I wanted to do immediately right off the bat freshman year.
Well, it's a lucky thing. That's a a nice option to have there. So, you know, you graduate and you spend a little time doing the one thing that drives most people out of this business, which is you spend some time as a ticket sales representative with the Fiesta Bowl, right?
Yes. At the time, I was working for Western Digital as my full-time job as a field rep, which also can deter people from doing marketing because it is marketing, but it's also not. I was driving around Phoenix, hitting up Best Buys, Walmarts, Office Max, Staples, you name it, pushing hard drives. And I was like, I can't do this any longer, but it taught me a lot. And I really wanted to get back into sports. So I was crazy. And I worked an 8-hour shift for WD, and I worked 4 hours during that day for the Fiesta Bowl just to see if I could get into the sports world. You got a passport. Love it.
I held up my external hard drive for people listening.
But yeah, I did the ticket sales, but it was the easy kind of ticket sales almost because it was inbound sales. I wasn't doing cold calls. It was more,
okay. All right. That's good.
I want to buy Fiesta Bowl tickets. What's my best option?
That's nice. So there after that, you end up going back to school to get your master's degree in sports management at the University of San Francisco.
Yeah, I ended up applying and I left my WD job a week to the year just to go back to school and pursue the sports entertainment career full time. Moved back home, started, I believe it was summer of 2013 with the intention of trying to work for the Angels. And I ended up getting the Angels internship, I think a few months later, an intern for them during the 2014 season.
Yeah, baseball, like I'm sure everything is different. Every league's different, but, you know, obviously working so much on the arena side now and working in buildings that are NHL, what have you found from your experience in baseball that is very different than what you're doing now?
I think the team side in general, you very much so ride the highs and the lows of the season, and you're pretty much deterrent on the wins column instead of the overall picture, where I think the arena side gives you the ability to work on so many different things that you're just kind of more is looking for the next event and then knowing that everything is different. With baseball, you have different promotional items that could be kind of different, but it's at the end of the day, it's the same. Here's another bobblehead that's different, or this tomorrow or next day is Jared Weaver. I'm dating myself back to the 2014 season, Albert Pujols, all those guys, but the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a gauntlet of a season too. I feel like baseball, they play like 7,000 games in one season, right? Isn't that it? That's more than like any other league. I feel like. Yeah, it probably feels like 7,000. Like, man, I just can't imagine. It's probably exciting. It's probably like any of these teams or leagues that any of us experience. Like, I know when working at Rupp and having like UK basketball is one of those things that I was eager for the season to kick off about a month out and was like, oh, this is exciting. Basketball's back. And then about a month or two before it was left, I was like, I'm so exhausted. I don't want to see another basketball. I'm tired. Like, what is this? This is running me ragged. And then you kind of like get this amnesia a few months later. And then you're like,
Right.
all right, when's it starting back up again? I'm sure it's the same with baseball where it's like everyone's excited for opening day. And then a few months in, they're like, yeah, so how many more games do we have? How many more bobbleheads do we need to order? Like,
That season ended on a high note because it was the last time the Angels made the playoffs. So we got to ride the wave for the playoffs and just get to see what Mike Trout could do. But unfortunately, the Royals swept the Angels in the first round. So that was
and then
short.
You're no longer there. So clearly you were the good luck charm.
Clearly.
Well, speaking of riding the wave, you kind of rode that into a position with the Big West Conference, where you worked for a little bit there in marketing and social media. Talk to us about that experience.
Yeah, the Big West internship actually let me be kind of a resident Honda Center back in 2015 before now for the Big West tournament, which was pretty cool. The Big West it was a marketing internship, but that's kind of the time period where social was starting to take off. So it was really able to kind of just start messing around on social media and just kind of getting to feel of how it was going to work from the Big West side. Did the same with the Angels too, but the Big West kind of really gave me ownership of it, which was a lot of fun to just do as an intern when the joke about social media and interns were kind of a thing. Now you got vice presidents doing it. But Big West was great. Different conference feel from the Pac-12, but just a lot of fun.
So what did you take away from that experience, from the collegiate side of things, going from, Major League Baseball to, really working on the conference side of things that's still with you today?
I think it's about kind of just pushing the bond that you have on the conference side of things, because like, especially in the Pac-12, like you go to Vegas for the Pac-12 tournament and it's more of a Pac-12 pride thing where you're walking down the street from the Pac-12 tournament. You're like, oh, there's Colorado. Oh, there's UCLA. And then you see all of you. It's just a different feel than just Arizona everywhere. But I think the Big West tournament was more about kind of pushing to with the schools that basketball is here and like we get to send a team to the tournament. And in that year it was UC Irvine that won the Big West championship with Mamadou, who's a 7'6" guy who was an incredible human being. It was a crazy experience just to kind of see his dream of going to March Madness come to fruition. And just college kids in general, just knowing that they're accomplishing their dreams.
Yeah. Well, from that point, you end up spending a good chunk of your professional career, about 5 years in San Jose. So talk to us about how this happened.
After graduation from USF, the arena marketing coordinator was actually sent to the USF listserv, and I applied for it because the job description was pretty much taking social media and everything that I had done and combining it with everything I wanted to learn, the media buying side of the industry and just getting the full marketing feel. Because a lot of the internships up until that point were just kind of like touching marketing, but not really diving into the marketing plans. So that's what drew me, and just knowing that the live events, they were also hosting the 2016 Olympic trials for the women's gymnastics team. And I thought that would be an amazing thing to work for, and the NCAA tournament with the West Regionals in 2017. So those two events combined with the job description, I was sold.
And you're at a building that's got an NHL team too. Is that something that, did you ever watch NHL, or was that your kind of first experience, being exposed to that?
My dad's from Pittsburgh, so I was technically raised a Penguins fan, which the ironic part about that is the Sharks ended up playing the Penguins in the 2016 Stanley Cup at SAP Center, which my cousin was a turd. I don't know if people still but he sent me a Sidney Crosby jersey to SAP Center right before Game 3 of the Cup while we were all in Nashville for EAMC. So I didn't even get to open the jersey. And my coworkers decided to open up the box and take Sidney Crosby's jersey and put it on my desk in my cube. And I was like, that's it. I'm getting fired.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's funny you mentioned that EAMC. That's some of the fun memories I think of when I think of the conference. Is it does usually land that early mid-June, which is around the NBA finals, around the Stanley Cup finals.
Right.
And so sometimes it prevents some of the people from those buildings from going, but usually the building people might be there because it's just the team that are participating. And one of the kind of fun dynamics is you do have people that are sometimes there watching these finals, like in the hotel bar with their contemporary that's from the other building, and you're literally sitting right next to them. You're both rooting on it's just creates this hilarious dynamic. And I remember many a times where like Liz Roca, who was with the Heat at the time, and Jim Delaney, who's from Boston, watching these Heat and Celtics games, and it getting pretty hilariously heated. And it was, I don't know, I think it's a funny thing because I think we network so much at it, but because it does fall during that very intense finals time, it creates a fun little rivalry between a lot of buildings.
Definitely. I remember watching the Blues with people from the Blues building in Toronto when they won.
Right.
And just have one person screaming by themselves because we're all transplants with the one person who is a Blues fan.
Always an adventure. Always an adventure. Now, speaking of adventures, the pandemic hits and you found yourself out of a gig, right? So was that something where, I know it's a hard thing for a lot of people to talk about. And some of us were let go from jobs. Some of us were redeployed and had some other challenges, and everybody kind of struggled. So talk to me about kind of that moment in, I guess probably, in August 2020 for you, when you find out you're out of work and you have to make that decision of, is this an industry I want to stay in?
Yeah, definitely. I almost had a feeling that it was coming. So to say I was surprised would kind of be a lie. I was part of a 17 group layoff, and just knowing that changes were definitely coming around the corner and that things were going to happen, but I knew I wanted to stay in the industry. So I knew I was just taking the time to learn what was out there and just kind of help more with EAMC and stay connected and just kind of sit back and explore what I really wanted. And part of that was coming home to Southern California and being closer to my family. So technically in the end, it all worked out outside of a little experiment in Arizona and just trying to figure out where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was a tough time for a lot of folks, but eventually you do end up at the Honda Center. And how did you get back in the business?
So it was just kind of a weird sequence of perfect events.
Story of my life.
I know. They say it's not luck. It's just like the preparation to get to that point to where it just adds up, which is 100% true. Because I literally put in my resignation and then shot an email to my now boss and said, "Hi, I'm available and I'm literally down the street if you're still hiring. My name is Megan." And that was it.
Right place, right time for so many of us. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Hey, speaking of crazy, you do something that's kind of cool. Am I right that you actually assist? We're not gonna name names, but a former Olympic gold medalist with his social media efforts.
Yeah. So during my job search, after hosting in San Jose, was supposed to be 2 national championships, 1 Olympic trials for figure skating, got to know the people at US Figure Skating and stayed in touch over the years. And one of them reached out to me and said, "Hey, we have an Olympian who's really trying to grow his social media. Like, would this be something that you're interested in? You know him, you've met him back in 2018, and I think you would be a good fit." And I was like, I don't know if I have the time at the moment to do it, but let me stay in touch and like see where this goes. So the day that I ended up putting in my resignation, I ended up calling him and it was like, "Hi, I'm available. How do we get this going? I've never done this before, but let's try and figure it out. And if this works, we can see where this goes." So I'm currently on month 4 of that. And the nationals just happened in Nashville 2 weeks ago. and was able to do a bunch of cool things with him, get his content on NBC Olympic Story, the US Figure Skating Story, and just kind of help. It's an experiment, really. And it's kind of fun just to see kind of what works, because all of his figure skating content always performs, but he's also a chef and a bartender. So it's a little mixture of doing sports content with food and beverage content and just getting creative, but it's different.
What's that like? Yeah, what's it like managing kind of like a personality account versus, a venue, which obviously you've done, you've been around teams, and then, you've even dabbled in podcasts now, but, how does that vary? Because, all of those are, of course, using the same platform, but you almost have to treat them differently. They each need to have kind of their own brand and some of them are a little more as a corporate and the other ones are a little more personal. So what differences have you found or have you seen from, other accounts that you followed?
This one is a little different because it's almost kind of like an intimate little world. So I'm technically reading his direct voice or messages, and I feel like a creep almost because I'm like, I don't know if I should be listening or reading these messages. So luckily I'm able to swipe and make it unread so he knows to go and look at it. But as the voice, I think it's awesome because you have the fan favorites and the people who are the super fans, but they're a super fan of a person who gave them so much joy during the Olympics when he won and all that. So they relate to him. Whereas a venue is more of a things happening in the venue as opposed to like the person. And then you also have to keep in mind that it's his reputation that's on the line. So you want to make sure everything fits his identity and has his approval. Where on the arena side, it's more Live Nation's approving your content. Whoever is in the building is approving your content, but it's just protecting his identity as opposed to not really having an identity on the arena side. Because I think arena social is one of the hardest socials to do, really. Because one day you're posting about Marco Antonio Solis, the next day you're talking about Disney on Ice, and then Justin Timberlake. And all of those don't really hit the same audiences. But then when you post Bennett's posts like the Sharks or the Ducks, everybody who follows, or not everybody, but 70% of them.
The vast majority, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like those posts just automatically have more engagement. And it's like, this isn't even fair.
I know. Well, and I mean, that's a good point you bring up. I mean, I think that probably means the stakes are a bit higher when you're managing a personal brand account, because not that you're going to like be flippant or anything with like an arena account, but if you mess up on one little WWE post, it's not the end of the world. There's a million other events and stuff, but messing up on one little, post on someone could mean, I'm not trying to freak you out, but it could mean them getting canceled, like the extremities are so like severe, so I think that is an interesting perspective that you do have to be, more respectful that this is someone's identity, it's creating a brand for them. This could be their livelihood, but I'm sure it also has, like, I love that you brought up that maybe it has more of like a personal connection. And that's not to say people don't have that connection with venues and teams, but, when there's someone's face that's associated with it, it's got to be really kind of emotional, because I'm sure a lot of people do have these very vivid memories, especially with Olympics, that, they, have these memories of watching them with their kid or their father, or maybe they are also, a competitor in that sport. And, I'm sure that's really kind of, meaningful in a different way.
It's that too, and it's also engagement. I remember when he was kind of interviewing me, he was like, I want to make sure that whoever's doing this isn't just commenting on different celebrities' posts that I don't even know who they are. So I was just like, yeah, we'll be very careful about whose accounts we're engaging with and try and keep in the figure skating world and then not cross any political boundaries or anything that might get you canceled. Like, I don't want any part of that.
That's great. Well, it's neat that you found that. And I think, Megan, the one thing that I'm seeing as a theme is, you're kind of finding a way when you're out of work, or, you're finding a way to figure out Photoshop or to become Google certified or to manage a personal social media account. So talk to that person who's listening right now, who's, maybe out of work or maybe new to the industry. What advice do you have for them to kind of help, their career kind of get that jump start?
It's a good question. I think In my USF sport management days, one of the things that they said for people who don't know what they want to do is to always try an internship, because an internship in any area that interests you, but just to try it first, because when you try it, that's how you really know if that's what you want to do before you pursue it. Committing to an internship that expires in 4 months is a lot better than trying a coordinator job and realizing 4 months in that you're going to quit. Yeah. So I think just seeing where you can try, doing informational interviews and kind of gaining as much knowledge as you can before really helps kind of shape, which goes back to action, because like if you don't know what you don't know, and I feel like that kind of helps anybody on a career path as well as just life in general.
That's great. That's awesome. Hey, we like to do this before we let you go. We like to hit you with our Fast Five. It's 5 quick questions. Just looking for your immediate response. So up first, what was your very first concert?
I think my first paid concert was Katy Perry at Arizona with my own dollars.
Very nice. How about your favorite concert?
Favorite concert? I think Taylor Swift's concert, the Reputation tour at Levi Stadium.
The big stadium tour.
Yeah, Swiftie.
Peloton's Taylor Swift program, absolutely recommend.
I may or may not have done one of those.
No comment. How about the nicest artist you've ever met?
Nicest artist I've ever met. I definitely could say an athlete. I drove Carly Patterson around promoting the 2016 trials, and she was just like my best friend. She was awesome.
That's so cool. How about your favorite venue that you haven't yet had a chance to go to? So maybe let's call it your bucket list venue.
I'm going to have to say SoFi Stadium. I haven't made my way up there yet.
What's the drive time there on a good day?
An hour and like 5 minutes.
No excuse. Grab some Super Bowl tickets.
I know.
Exactly. Hey, last question for you. What is your theme song? What is the song that plays over the opening credits to the Ebeck show, right? Where it's all about you, cameras follow you around. What's the theme song for your show?
I'm going to stick along with the Katy Perry theme, and given that I've worked both NorCal and SoCal venues, and go with California Girls.
Nice. Megan, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you about Google certification or anything? What's the best place to find or follow you?
I'd say Twitter or LinkedIn. My Twitter account is my high school nickname, which is Meegs with 3 E's and 3 Z's. And then
way to hold on to that one.
I haven't changed it. I've thought many times, but there's another Megan Ebeck who took all of my usernames. So we're just keeping it high school nickname.
I think you need to challenge her.
I do, but I'm related to her.
The true Megan Ebeck will survive. It's Highlanders.
She's my second cousin. So
okay. How mad can you get then?
That's true.
Well, hey, we really appreciate your time today, and all your work in the podcast too. From all of our listeners, thank you for helping get the word out, and all your behind the scenes work you do to help us, Paul and I, look good.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. It's fun. You guys also do the hard job, public speaking every single week to get it going.
Hey, we do want to thank everybody who's a listener to Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We'd love your 5-star reviews, so it helps others find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Arena Marketing Conference, a nonprofit organization bringing together people in the field of live entertainment to discuss marketing, publicity, and sales trends. Find out more at eventarenamarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.